Congressman, thank you again for coming on the program, sir. It's great talking to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Cam.
Well, let me ask you, first of all, just generally, your thoughts on today's oversight hearing.
Really disgusted, to be honest with you, Cam. When you see the two government witnesses that had some orchestration in this, they were looking at people as collateral damages, not looking at the consequences of how people's lives, both in the United States and in Mexico, were being looked at. This was going to fail from the very get-go, and like I said in the hearing, is that I'm witnessing a Mo Curley and looking for Larry show, because obviously they couldn't give us the questions and answer the questions, where the answer is to tell us who condoned this and where it goes.
Absolutely. In fact, I thought it was very interesting how some witnesses, particularly Mr. Newell, seemed to really want to avoid addressing those big questions.
It was, and you could actually see the agent, particularly the agents in Mexico, who were their body languages were very upset with his testimony. And you could see that there was a disconnect, that this wasn't going to work. And I think the agent Canino basically said that they took the rule book and threw it out into the garbage can.
Yeah, and, while this is going on, we saw a front page story. First time Washington Post has covered Fast and Furious on the front page, but once again, the paper really seems to give a lot of attention to the apologists for Fast and Furious. There were one source speaking under the condition of anonymity who talked about how unfair it was that all of this scrutiny is now being placed on Fast and Furious. Unfair.
I don't think it's unfair. I think this was we were acquiescing to how we could get some more gun control within this country. And I think it was a sad attempt at how we are working that angle. And you could see particularly some of the questions that were asked and how they pivoted to that and having gun control. And it was quite the opposite. Everybody that did make these sales based on good faith were actually contacting ATF to say, listen, where are you following up on these people? They did their due diligence, and now they're being held, trying to be held as part of the problem.
Absolutely. And, we learned yesterday, Fox News reporting that 2 of the 20 individuals who are now under indictment in Fast and Furious should not have been allowed legally to buy these firearms, that they were prohibited persons, and yet somehow they passed the NICS check or ATF approved sales to people who are prohibited by law from buying them.
Well, and, when you're the ATF and you put out a list and say, sell them these guns, hey, wait a minute, we got a problem here. Mission control, something's going wrong here. And I think Mr. Gowdy, who was a prosecutor, could not figure out what they were actually trying to get at. It made no sense. It makes no common sense of what they were doing. And there's surely a predication that you see in some of the emails, as well as speeches, that they orchestrated this. They understood what they were going, and it doesn't make sense.
Absolutely not. A lot of the attention has been focused on ATF, but clearly there was DOJ knowledge and DOJ involvement in terms of the planning of Fast and Furious.
It is, and it shows, and I alluded it to Mr. Holder's speech earlier in 2009. It almost predicates exactly what transpired in this case. So we need to have, fulfillment of subpoenas. We need to have more information, and I think the committee's doing it in a very wise manner. Very slow, making sure that you're methodical, make sure you get all the information so that you're not jumping to rash decisions. But it's all pointing to the same thing, and particularly the testimony from Mr. Newell today was frustrating because he did not want to answer the question and played, almost like I said, the Three Stooges. He did not want to answer a question, and he rolled round and round and round playing coy about a definition.
Right at the get-go, your colleague Representative Issa told all of the agents there assembled that, despite what they may have been told by their superiors at ATF or DOJ, that they needed to cooperate with this committee. Do you think that, would you characterize Mr. Newell's testimony as cooperative?
No, not at all. He avoided the issue, and he tried to be coy and almost non-compliant and complacent. The fact that there has to be personal accountability and personal responsibility. This is what this federal government does to law-abiding Second Amendment citizens. We should demand the same thing in return. And where the buck stops, the buck stops. And anybody that had some oversight in this should have known better. It's sad that we're watching this in real time, but it's like A Few Good Men, the movie. And what we're seeing is the few good men, they're trying to tarnish them, they're trying to cover it up, and they had plenty of time to come forth and do this right.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things that we did hear from Mr. Newell today, he's got a friend, I guess, Kevin O'Neill, who works in the White House, and he admitted that they had discussed Fast and Furious. This is really the first a solid link that we have to White House knowledge of the Fast and Furious investigation. Is that something that the Oversight Committee is going to be pursuing further?
I'm sure there's others, and we'll leave that to Mr. Issa. But anytime you're talking about a program or a process that goes across the international border, the State Department, the Department of Justice, all should be included in those dictations. And if they weren't, that's troubling even as well. And particularly that we weren't notifying our counterparts in Mexico. How dare us? It's amazing. I think one of the comments was this: how amazing do they actually trust us after this? It's sad.
It is sad. And we've been talking about this on the program before. So far, the media in Mexico and the political parties in Mexico have sort of presented a united front bashing the United States for Fast and Furious. But Calderon, who's going after the cartels, is up for re-election next year, and I'm sure at some point his political opponents are going to try to use this as an issue of why did you trust the United States, and look what you got for trusting them.
That's exactly right. And once again, it shows this wanton aspect that we've seen all too well in Arizona, where we have a Justice Department picking and choosing winners and picking and choosing laws that they want to uphold and those that they don't want to uphold. And that's what's sad about it is I thought the Justice Department was supposed to adjudicate those laws and enforce them properly, and we're not seeing that.
We've also not seen really any outrage expressed by President Obama or Attorney General Eric Holder. I mean, their response so far has been very low-key. We've got our internal investigation going. If this had happened, I mean, Congressman, if this had happened while you were president, wouldn't you be pounding the table? Wouldn't you be furious about this?
This would actually be, and that's what's so insulting, and that's what I hope I portrayed, is that I hope the American people are upset about this as like I am, is that, we need a government that's accountable and transparent, and this doesn't show any of that appropriation. But it also shows you that there's two faces to Washington, D.C. Those things that you want to admit and those that you want to cover up. And this administration and the DOJ have clearly shown no respect in regards to how this was conducted, how it was conveyed, and then the collateral-like damage that I would say was inherent to this. The lives that people lost, Agent Terry, I'm sad and I'm stricken. And the people in Mexico, holy cow, over 40,000 people, and what did we do? We just facilitated even worse.
Yeah.
Sad day, sad state of affairs.
It really is. And, I know obviously there's a lot of stuff going on in D.C. these days, including the debt talks. Every congressman has their committee assignments. But I'm curious, on Capitol Hill, how big a story is Fast and Furious? Are there congressmen, senators who are not on the Oversight Committee, not on Senate Judiciary, who are paying attention to Fast and Furious?
All of a sudden they are, Cam. It's got everybody's attention, and I think the fact that Senator Grassley and Congressman Ice have really put the prevalence about doing this right, holding accountability, and the nature of making sure we're very thorough about our investigation. I think people are now starting to understand, whoa, we got a problem, Mission Control. Yeah. We need to focus on this. And I think, today I've had several people make comments and saying, tell me what else happened this morning. The report coming out last night, I think is going to show a lot of credibility and additional information that I think we're going to start seeing more information come forward and holding our public officials accountable for personal accountability and public accountability. And where the buck stops, people need to acknowledge they made a mistake and that they're responsible for that.
Representative Gosar, thank you again, sir, for joining us, and look forward to talking to you again very soon.
Cam, always a pleasure. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you, sir.